I'm Carole Robinson, and welcome to this edition of County Happenings, where we find out what all's happening in the county, Mr. Mayor, with Mayor Roger Sanderson. I'm doing well after a very busy vacation, not very relaxing, so I came home to sleep.
Well, I kind of on that same scale.
Yeah, you've been on the go for the last, what, 6 months?
Yeah.
Between county things and the fair?
County things and the fair thing. The fair was very successful. We know we had about an 18 to 20% increase in the revenue. We haven't got the expenses taken out. Anytime you have an increase like that, you certainly have more expenses. But the smiles on the faces, we were very fortunate. We dodged most of the bad weather. We did get some rain, but on those Friday, Saturday events, I've never seen that many people. In fact, at one time, one of the areas that is very, very popular at our Williamson County Fair, and the theme this year was Rock Around the Fair, and it had just a catchy title, but down around Little Ones Farmings, which is it's been there from day one. This is our 9th fair. It's you go in a barn, the silos and all that, and you teach kids
about farming
and raising all of the many, many things that we kind of took for granted growing up. Very popular. We hear that
things were chores for us, but these kids love it.
Oh yeah. So I went down one night. We were in between handling issues and just trying to get the feel and the flavor how it was going. Parked out front in front of Little Ones Farmings, I think it was 17 strollers.
Now that's a picture. I should
have got that picture, but it just tells you that our community, through the efforts of certainly the sponsorship, this is impossible to put on financially, to hold your ticket prices down to $6, and our Midway, Jimmy Drew, makes it affordable. I know there are people that would argue with that, but you can ride in the evenings all you want, or on a Saturday for $20 or $25, depending on the evening.
Incredible, yeah.
But the volunteers, 1,200 volunteers, how do you pull off something like that?
And tell it, make sure everybody understands, this is not a county-sponsored event.
No.
This money does not come from taxpayers.
No. It's self-sufficient through the sponsorship and the countless volunteers. In fact, the fair is a 501c, and they rent the facility, and it has been very successful. I think probably more so than any of us expected 10 years ago, it's our fair. It's different.
When in the planning stages, when you were talking to fair experts, didn't they say it'd be 10 to 15 years before you'd see it?
I think most of them all said the first year would be your difficult year. We came out of the gate. It was wonderful. The second, third years, we ran into this thing called hot weather, and then we were able to get the air conditioning put in the Ag Center, and that has helped enormously for people to understand. In I think it was 2007, maybe 6, every single day of the fair was over 100 degrees. That was a real challenge.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years, we've kind of dodged the rain. Wilson County Fair is doing the same thing. But I think more so, people have learned to expect what the fair is about. You get a few different rides. You get some new events. But it's all about the activity and the enjoyment of great music, great events, highly educational.
Yeah. See some neighbors you haven't seen in a year.
And I think it's important, too, to point out on the ag side, which is down in the barn area, we say, where the Little Ones Farming is at, one of the largest beef shows in the state, over 230 head of beef on 2 different days. It is just enormous.
A lot of meat on the hoof there.
As one person said, there's a lot of hamburgers sitting out there. But
a lot of really good food.
Well, for the most part, the food is good. But if you didn't go, you missed it.
Yeah.
You can watch it on Channel 3. The guys do the taping, and so you can relive that for the next several months. And we're already, believe it or not, Carole, we've already had one meeting this week about, well, what do we do for the next fair, which is the 10th fair.
That's going to be a biggie.
And so we're trying to come up with a theme. If you're watching this show, you'd like to participate, help in some way, we can use you, from taking tickets to driving people around to just welcoming people to our fair, taking entries.
With any fresh ideas.
And new ideas. That is a challenge for people like me that are getting up in years, that you need that young, fresh mind and what attracts those people. Now I can do the logistical side and kind of do what I need to do. We're going to balance the books. We're going to be very conservative in what we can afford, based on even if we had rain every single night. I do want to say, in closing on the fair, I don't want to make the show all about the fair, but we did something this year that I think is great for our community. You know this, that we do scholarships for many people in our community. I think it's 6 this year. We'll do more next year for our young people to go off to either technical school or 2-year or 4-year college. We put back the majority of our money. We make improvements to the Ag Center for more electrical that other people can use, which helps to hold the tax base down. You don't have to spend tax dollars on it. But one of the things we tried this year was the encouraging of Diane and Terry and some of the other ladies that had gone to one of the conventions, and there was a major push across the country to give back to your community, and we felt like we were doing an adequate job, but we can certainly do more.
Right.
So we opened up the gates. We gave the entire tickets away if you came in with 2 cans of food that would help the facility here in town called Graceworks. So you bring 2 cans of food, and you could come in, and you could bring your husband or your friend or whatever. 2 cans get you in free. We collected 3.5 tons worth of food for the pantries for people to use in our community through the many people that walk through the fair.
How much spinach?
Yeah, I should tell you. Of course, you knew the answer. I was standing outside and kind of greeting people and saying thank you, and and everybody was coming in, and there was a guy that I knew that came in with 4 cans of spinach, 2 for him, 2 for his wife, and I said, no, you got to pay when you bring spinach in. And he kind of smiled, but we did let him in.
Yeah.
But spinach didn't count. That should not be on.
That should not be a food group.
That should not be a food group. Not in my estimation. I know it's good for you, but it's not one in a can that you've been doing. But it's been great. Lots of other things going on in our town.
Lots of things. School started. Got lots of kids in the classroom. A little bit of moving around and stuff.
We don't have the final numbers yet. They really don't start doing. They do a head count after Labor Day. So many people moving into our community that their schools, particularly if you come from the Midwest and the northern parts, they really don't start looking at school till after Labor Day. In Tennessee, we start now almost first part of August.
For Pete's sake.
But the true numbers will start coming because you have to report those numbers to the state to show you what you're doing. But indications are right now we've got some real issues and challenges at a few of our schools.
Yeah, they're pushing up. It sounds like they're pushing up the schools in Nolensville.
We know that Dr. Looney and the school board will be coming forth with some requests for money to build a new high school on some land they've already purchased in Nolensville. We also know they're going to need either a new K-8 school in Nolensville or another elementary school, and I don't know they've made that final decision. We have a K-8 out at Sunset, which is on Sunset Road in Nolensville, and is the need more greater to have another elementary school and let that school be more of a middle school, do some changing. But growth continues to be an issue in the Nolensville community and the Spring Hill and certainly Thompson Station. We're looking for some land, a new elementary school in Thompson Station too. So
yes, I think in the southern part of the county, schools are going to be competing with churches as to how many there are down there.
I'm not going there. I can simply tell you that, I should say this about churches. I've had 3 or 4 of our churches, I think all of them would respond if they knew there was a need, but 3 or 4 of the churches have called and set up a time, and we sit and talk, that they want to do more in our community to help our schools or our community, not just in those large tornado,
Right.
God-driven accidents from rain and hail, and certainly bad weather, flooding. But 3 or 4 of them have, and these are the larger churches by far, but they're
I think
committed
they want to
to.
be more proactive
They
than
do.
reactive.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of what denominational label you have on that church, anytime we can help feed some folks and take care of some folks, educate some folks, make it a better community for us to live in, I think that is their mission.
Yeah.
And 2, I think that sends a very large signal that we are an active, growing, and vivacious and church or synagogue or whatever it may be, that they would that they want to give back to our community. And so I say thank you. And there are other churches that are watching, listening to this. There's always a way to get engaged in Williamson County
There
to
always
help.
is, yeah. I was up in Boston. My sister-in-law works with, she's director of Catholic Charities up there, and they're having difficulty getting people involved in funding and stuff. And I go, come to my county. When people know somebody's in trouble, they're right there.
And in our rural areas, not so much in our faster growing communities, say in the business district of Cool Springs, but in our rural communities, it's not uncommon almost every weekend some place that someone is not having a fundraiser to help someone either pay the deductible on their insurance or the extra living expenses, or their house
Repair something on the house.
Repair something. It is just so gratifying to see that. More times than not, I certainly don't know all of these people, but I get invited, and you try to attend a few of them, the ones that you can get around to. But whether I'm there or you're there, it's knowing that community is trying. And I think that's one of the things about Williamson County people will acknowledge real quick when they get here. Everybody's willing to help somebody without an ulterior motive. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have issues that we have to work through, but in those difficult times, it's a very, very giving community.
Speaking of moving into Williamson County, building permits are up, and there's a major thing going on in Franklin.
Sure is. Our building permits through the month of July, we were into 2006 period of time. So let me say that a different way. We received more building permits through the month of July, from January through July, than we did the entire year last year in 2012. That same thing could be said for 11 and 10 and 9 and 8 and 7, and we're on target because of new growth for new building permits. This isn't existing sales. That's pretty much controlled by the market, interest rates. But new building permits, we're back on 2006 level, which is really straining our departments once again. We'd realigned, we've done some things to make it more efficient, but it still takes people to make inspections and do things. That's in the unincorporated area. It's even a larger percentage if you take all of our 6 cities and put them with our counties. Our numbers are up significant.
Wow. And tell me about this, tell our viewers about this big new project that's going on in Franklin. I mean, it is Franklin, but it's going to affect the county.
Yeah, it's, commercial development usually lags the residential side about a year to a year and a half, in some cases 2, depending on what's going on.
They need to see who's coming and
That's
where.
right. We've had a lot of interest in businesses looking in our community. Lots of entrepreneurs out there doing their thing with a 1 or 2 man shop, or a 8 to 10 man shop, man or woman shop. Let me get my terminology here. But all of a sudden, there's a renewed interest in additional office space, and one of those large office space taxpayers, in fact, the largest, is called Highwoods. And they have proposed a development over next to Carruthers and Liberty, right in that little block. It's next door to where the land is for Columbia State. They're going to build a new campus. Next door to, across the street from where Vanderbilt's looking at building another medical center comparable to the one that is in the 100 Oaks area. this piece of property is referred to in Old Franklin terms as the Pickering property, but the new name is Ovation. And Ovation rolled out their proposals, not gone through the vetting processes, is to have a community that would be on 100 acres, about 100 acres of that 147.
Hard to believe there's 100 acres in Cool Springs.
It's the largest tract still left in the Franklin city limits. They're proposing to add an additional 1.4 million square feet of office space.
It's a lot of buildings.
That's a lot of square feet. 7-story buildings. It's a live-work community. It's a urban development in a suburban setting. So that will bring a lot of conversation, I promise. All high tech, with trolleys.
My goodness.
It's a 15 to 20 year build out. On top of the things that are already going on in that area, Dr. Moore and I were...
A lot of new streets going on.
And they'll have to build those, but Franklin will have to bring that infrastructure there too. But as Dr. Ken Moore said, we were talking about, we were there for the unveiling, and when it's up and going, it will have a 25,000 population base just in that framework.
Wow.
And
be a city unto itself.
It's really a city under a city. Now, Cool Springs we've known as a business community. And the Meridian, where CHS is at, and many other corporations over by the Meridian, the hotel in that area. That's a small little community within a community. This is a
big
large,
community.
And there is nothing like it in Tennessee. You have to go to Atlanta or Dallas, Charlotte to see that type. And I know there's people shaking their heads, kind of like I am. It's a two-edged sword. It brings a lot of people, brings a lot of challenges. Certainly, we'll
How many
have
schools are we going to have to go to these
build.
people?
But that's what's happening. People are wanting to live in Williamson County. I've lived here since the 80s, and I understand why they want to live here. But the challenge for us, can we balance all this and control this growth? We don't have anything to say in the county. What happens inside the cities, we have influence. But it's going to take on a different look over the next 15 to 25 to 30 years. How our county looks and how our cities look.
Yeah, we're going to actually have a new, that's going to redefine the skyline over there.
It will.
Especially with 7, 8-story buildings.
Of course, as the fire marshal has told me on more occasions than not, that once you get past 7 stories, the requirements really multiply, and it's really the safest buildings you can have, because we don't have any ladders that go beyond 7 stories. So those buildings have got to be sprinkled. They got to be fire resistant. Usually they're high nature tempered steel combined with concrete.
And a lot of firewalls.
But it causes us all to question, how do we get from point A to point B? Because we're having trouble getting from point A to point B now. And so the planners have got their work cut out for them.
And the question, how did we get from point A 20 years ago to where we are now? It's just incredible.
Well, I submit to you the reason people move here we use this term loosely as quality of life. But I submit to you that the reason the majority of people, once they have a job, either in Nashville or in our county, and the reverse commutes have changed. Lots of people are working in the Brentwood, Cool Springs, Franklin area and live outside of our area now. But whereas before, you and I lived here and drove outside our area to go to work. But I submit to you the number one reason people settled here is our public education. Franklin Special, certainly Williamson County. Some recent news, the ACT test scores were just off the chart.
Off the chart in a state where they were saying that they were below the national average this year.
Now the state as a whole is still down there, 46, 7 or whatever it is. But Williamson County is that bright shining star. The school board and the parents from both institutions and our private side have driven to the point that we expect more, we demand more, and now some of those test scores are coming out indicating that. Also understand and sensitive to all the many changes that schools are bringing, that to many of us, I still talk about the 4 R's, and the 4 R's are reading, writing,
and arithmetic.
And see, I didn't even add writing. That's just 3. The 3 R's. There's a 4 R's now they talk about. But today's children, and we have a 93 to 93.5% graduation rate from high school. But the future children that graduate, whether they choose to go to a 4-year institution or they choose to go to a Columbia State, which is predominantly 2 years, get an associate's degree, or they choose just to go out and get a vocation to be able to feed their family, electrician and plumbers and air conditioners.
Which we're still going to need.
We're going to need them. Fixing your automobile. But they've got to be able to read and cipher and add and do those things. And one of the skills, I just left a meeting early this morning. We had a meeting with our corporate CEOs. What can we do better in the school system? And one of the CEOs, I won't say who it was saying they used to have, when they interview these people and they get them into the last 3 to 5, now not the frontline interviews, I mean you cull down to what you want for your job. He said 2 years ago we had people doing an essay for the last thing we considered. Their writing, their intellectual skills, their ability to communicate was what we were looking for. Could we talk? Could we communicate? He said we had to give that up. That so many of our children today have gone
because they're doing this.
That's right. They've gone from the traditional English language as you and I grew up, with conjugating verbs and knowing how to work with prepositions, and of course spelling can be handled through spell check. But just sequence of how you talk about things, not just fragmentation of sentences and paragraph, that there's no rhyme or reason, and that's purely the emails and the texting. It's to the point. There's no big story to it, and the sequences are very important. Why is that important? In our computer skills that we have today, you have to know that it starts here and you want to get over here. What are the steps to get there? And in communicating, you have to be able to communicate that. Now, many men and women don't need that skill set, but there are very few things that we don't still need today, and that's the ability to communicate. And to be able to relay, I'm here and here's where we need to be, how do we get there? And that's a dying art, to be able to put that in a written form. So to those teachers and to those many folks out there that still believe that there's no need for some of those skills, there is. And our business community is saying it was so bad, we just said we're not even going to look at that, because first of all, the element of privacy, there was some degree. The social network just says you can type and put anything you want. We all know that's not a good thing.
Right.
And in your writing skills, it's that sequence, and how do I do it? But the employer really doesn't want to know every single thing. They want to know how to do this on a given topic.
They need to know the priorities. They don't need to know first step, second step, third step, but this is the plan, the flow.
I never will forget, I know we're running out of time, but I got to tell this quick story. I was in the military, I came back, I went to the University of Tennessee and entered this huge English class. Now, English was not one of my better subjects. Spelling is still a challenge for me. But the professor in this large class wanted to know where everyone was in their skills. Well, I'd been away for 3 or 4 years in the military before I went back to school. So he broke us up into groups, and each group he gave them a little, what I call a flashcard, and on that flashcard was the topic, and you had 2 minutes to talk about the topic that he gave you in front of the audience, and he would make an assessment. Now, in those days, we were literally taping to see how your public skills, your English skills were, and how creative you were. And the one that I got was to talk 2 minutes on what goes through a jaywalker's mind as he crosses a 6-lane road.
And you came from a little country town.
I came from a country town, about six lanes. We didn't have it, two, one going and one coming. But apparently I was able to, even back then, that was 40 years ago, those skill sets are still needed.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, it's been something that has been an issue since the social media became so prevalent, especially email and now cell phones and stuff, is that people aren't talking face to face. They're not even talking on the phone anymore, which used to be an issue with teenagers. They're just talking in abbreviations on a text where they don't even have to look at the person they're talking with, and that's becoming, I'm sure employers are saying,
I do
okay.
it too. I mean, a way of communicating with so many of the staff and employees that we have here is through the avenue of text. And
that is quick and easy.
It's quick and easy, and it's painless. But now, teaching this old dog that are you ready, and it's not A-R-E, it's just R-U, and then
R-D-Y.
And so you have to be careful what you're saying. But texting is very important. In emergencies, we need that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying you cannot give up the basic skill sets.
We're eliminating, if you're doing it as your major way of communication, you're losing some skills.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say this. Many of the people probably know this, that I marry, because of the title of mayor or county executive, we marry quite a few people here on a weekly basis. And I'm surprised at just how many people, not that it's good, not that it's bad, that tell me they met, because I always ask, how'd y'all meet? I still got a little romantics. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's important in relationships. And more of them are telling me they met online.
Wow.
And, they communicate, they text, they email, then eventually they'll get together to see how their skill set is. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's kind of hard for me to go. I know you just got a little time, but more and more they're just changing, because we marry, 1 to 2, 3 people a week, depending on the flow of the mind.
Those are the ones that are, let's get married.
It's communication is important. I think that's what we need to lead the Peace Boys. So encourage that. Reading is still a outstanding hobby to have when you get older. It is a
But talk about the book.
That's right.
Yeah, communicate and tell other people about it. And we're at the end of our communications line here, so we look forward to seeing you again. This is Carole Williamson with County Happenings. Have a great one.
Did you get a new TV?
Yeah. Plasma screen, 36 inch. What about you?
I got a new Mac computer. This thing's a little outdated.
A little.
Hi, I'm Richard Davis with the Solid Waste Department. Don't trash your old TVs and computer monitors. Bring them to the Williamson County Material Recycling Facility at 420 Century Court, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4. There's a $7 fee per TV or monitor. Don't forget, they contain materials that are hazardous to our health and environment.
There's 3 R's we're gonna talk about today. You gotta learn to reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. You gotta learn to recycle. You gotta learn to reduce, reuse, recycle.
Turn it in, don't toss it out.
Reduce, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle.